Senator Salvador, welcome to Lunch Break.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here today.
Absolutely. You are the youngest woman to ever be elected into the Senate. That's a huge deal.
No, I still sometimes have to sit with it a little bit because this feels weird to say and hear. But yeah.
It's a big title to hold. I mean, what was the experience like running for office? What was your initial I'm running, I'm doing it moment?
Yeah. So my story is pretty accelerated.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you remember back in 2019 when the courts ordered new districts due to gerrymandering. So
Mhm.
that impacted where I lived in southern part of Mecklenburg County and essentially created a new open seat. So for me personally, I went from just being a mom, being a nonprofit leader, working in tech to saying, I'm going to run for office all in about 9 or 10 days. So it was nothing,
Oh my
it was a
gosh.
pretty rapid life pivot, if you will, but
Yeah.
also maybe a life extension too, because it was a different way to work with my community and serve. But definitely wasn't a long term planned out way to get into it.
It's like a week and some change. That's a
Yeah.
lot of big conversations that have to happen in that time.
Oh yeah, and I was traveling too. So that
Of
to add a little
course.
bit to I was in California for TED Women that while all
Yeah.
of that was going on, and so yeah. But thankfully, I was still able to talk to my husband, talk to my mom, grandma, so me and my family and kids, and I also credit TED Women with being a big part of me. Additionally, deciding to jump into it because there were just so many supportive people, so many supportive women around that when I was just on that fence of can I, should I, will
Yeah.
I, that encouragement also meant a whole bunch.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic,
Yeah.
especially to be in a room of people that are just like, absolutely do it.
Yeah.
Why would you not? Is
Yeah.
fabulous. I mean, is there topic areas or subject areas when we're looking at Mecklenburg County that was your focus or maybe your reason of wanting to run?
There's definitely a number. So, me being born and raised in Charlotte, there was the statistic that folks talked about a lot about Charlotte being lower on upper mobility. I believe at the
Mhm.
time, or close to that time, it was 50 out of 50. And it was just a stat that led to a number of organizations, et cetera. But I looked at that stat and I saw like people I knew, communities, opportunities where folks that I would grow up with would have all of the aptitude, but maybe the opportunity wasn't there. And that's just something that has always really stuck with me throughout life and kind of the way that I try to work with things and serve. I
Mm.
had an energy affordability nonprofit, so naturally that was a big topic for me. But really the first and foremost to take that leap and dive in such a fast period of time was just the fact that it was going to be 2020, which is a census year. And
Yeah.
you think about redistricting and just our chance at having fair maps, it felt like just such an important thing to have as many candidates as possible and many electeds as possible who support and believe in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and 2020 is quite a year to
Yeah.
be running for office. We're
Yeah.
going into COVID, we have Black Lives Matter going on. What is the response like from the public when you announce that you're running in this time?
Yeah. So when I first announced, it was around December of 2019. And those first few months, I felt like I was starting to finally hit my stride. I had a website finally,
I love it. I
had a
love
campaign
it.
manager who was
It's
not my
official.
mom. Yeah. I was starting to do the things. And then here comes March, where, as you know, the world shut down. There was a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And there was this balance of how can I both try to be a resource and also respond without ever being in any elected office before. So there was just a lot of trying to connect with people that I didn't know and try to share out verified information, and then
Mhm.
also adapting the way in which I could engage with people in the campaign. So that is one element of being on the younger side helped. So
Yeah.
quickly having to jump into, so for my 30th birthday, we had a Zoom dance party where we had a DJ
I love
online and we
that.
just had some way for people to come together, even if we
Yeah.
couldn't physically be together. And even at the polls, we definitely used everything from QR codes that will pop up a video of me introducing myself
That's
to all kinds of
awesome.
stuff just to try to reach people however they felt comfortable, a safe way to do so that didn't feel too intrusive when so much uncertainty was there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Can we talk about your district a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah.
Walk me through some of just what your district looks like, the demographics, but also some of the big topic areas that are of focus to your constituents.
For sure. So I represent the southwest-ish, I'll say,
Okay.
part of Mecklenburg County. As you know, the lines are Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
But I right now in my third term, each term I've just about had a different district, so it's shifted over the years. But my district goes from the airport down
Mm,
to Lake Wiley, and will go as far over east as Ballantyne, South Park Mall, and even gets
wow.
pretty close to Uptown. So it covers a pretty large geographical area. One through line always is cost of living as well
Mhm.
as infrastructure. So with Charlotte growing rapidly, there's a number of either road projects or other kind of related concerns, like even stormwater, and
Okay.
making sure that with the development, we're not putting, communities at risk of flooding. Those types of things come up, but certainly it varies.
Mhm.
Different parts of the district will come out with something that they care about and are different needs. There was one community, the Park South community, who came to me because where they sit was a cut through. And so they just kept seeing cars going through the neighborhoods. And unfortunately, someone's puppy got run over.
Oh
And
no.
because people are just trying to find any way necessary to cut down on their travel time. So that was one instance of a very particular need, and trying to see legislatively, working with other counterparts about how we can continue to advocate to allow them to put in things that can increase the safety there. So it definitely varies, but
Okay.
I love the district because there's so many things you can do there as well. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
If you were going to take someone into your district who had never been there
yeah.
before, what are your like top 5 places? Where are you going to eat? Where are you going to show them? What does a day look like in the district?
Yeah, yeah. So maybe it might vary depending on the time of year.
That's okay.
I mean, it's summer now, so we do have Carowinds in the district. So if you are an amusement park thrill seeker, it's something where you can spend the whole day.
Mhm.
We also have the nature preserve, so really close to Lake Wiley, has great walking trails. It's a little bit more shaded
Mhm.
than the amusement park,
Yes.
so it's another way to be active as well. And I kind of touched the Whitewater Center as well as Freedom Park too. So we have a lot of just
Whoa.
really lovely, just places where people, if you wanted to grab a picnic towel and watch people raft, or grab a picnic towel and see people playing tennis or basketball, great places to do. And then I also have a smaller town of Pineville, and I
Mm.
have to give their park a shout out as well. So if you're there on a Saturday, they'll have these tiny sailboat races, and they're motorized, and people will come out and
Oh my
race the boats
gosh.
and
It's like
have
from
a
Stuart Little.
yeah,
Oh my
it's a lot of
gosh.
fun to when that is going on to see.
Yeah.
In terms of other stuff, I mean, if depending on how she's feeling, I will sometimes say my grandmother's house. Like, I just gotta say,
Absolutely.
when she's up to cooking still is a great time, and I love sitting on the front porch and catching up with folks. But there's a lot of, depending on somebody's vibe, I would probably say, okay, are you more outdoors? Do you want to do something
Yeah.
inside? We have painting classes, and just kind of fill it out from there.
Yeah. What a
Yeah,
luxury to have
yeah,
so many different options
yeah,
of things to do, which is great.
yeah.
Also, you mentioned your grandma. What's the go-to meal if she's cooking?
Ooh, so I love her cream corn.
Ugh,
So great.
yeah.
She also will do really good, like fried chicken. She'll do like there's just anything that we can get is certainly a luxury.
Yeah.
And then we were just at a cousin's house where it was cooking out, and we had everything from like the grill on the grilled chicken to frying fish to all. I think
Oh my
one big thing for
gosh.
my family is like coming together around food. We're definitely lovers
Absolutely.
of food. My youngest son said he wants to be a chef when he grows up. He's 10 now. And so that's just something that we are trying different things. I like to bake myself. And so I feel like at different points, the families coming together and eating different stuff.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why we do it. I
Yeah.
said, if anything, we can be together, eating together, and
Exactly. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Also, I feel like baking, probably with your job, is very therapeutic.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Gives you some time to just rest and do something other than thinking about the General Assembly.
No, you're spot on. And my family can always tell when the level of baking goes up. They're like, oh, Danishes, what was your week like? Versus a quick
What
little
happened this
brownie.
week?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone has their thing though, so
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I think that's fantastic. So we've talked about your
Yeah.
district a little bit. I want to transition into actually being in the General Assembly.
Okay. Yeah.
So you show up, you get your office. What is the response like from your colleagues, both on both sides of the aisle and just kind of generally?
Yeah. So at that time, it was January 2021.
Okay.
It was I feel like this journey into politics, being a first time elected, was definitely kind of just diving into the deep end. And for me, there was also this weird mix between the House and the Senate, where at that time the House was doing proxy voting and
Mm,
voting that did not require in person for the House. But in the Senate, we never had that
yeah.
ability. We could sometimes do committees virtually, but all of our votes, even, when many would say the height of COVID, we were still largely in person. So I
Wow.
remember getting into the building. It was very quiet. I like to
Yes.
take the train to Raleigh, and I have a picture of me in a train car where it's just me by myself and in a mask. Like, this is
Oh my
kind of a little
gosh.
spooky.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
it was this weird point of wanting to meet people, and then naturally understanding that is maybe not the easiest environment to do
Yeah.
so. So I mean, I just did reach outs to everybody, like, hey, I'm new here. Want to hear what you're about, share kind of things that interest me. But I will say I sometimes put an asterisk on that 2021 year, because the way that the building is now, where you see school groups and you see just like a lot of life that comes into the building,
Yeah.
it was really the opposite of that the first year being there.
I'm sure that
Yeah.
was pretty difficult as
Yeah.
well, and kind of eerie to have that
Yeah.
building be silent, or at least a little bit more quiet from, like, today we've seen there's a lot of noise going on,
Yeah.
so I'm sure what a juxtaposition from first year versus now.
Yeah.
Are there things that surprised you about just the functions of the General Assembly, things that maybe you thought was the case that are different, just anything that, was a surprise once you got there?
Yeah, so I don't know if I had knew exactly what to expect,
Yeah,
which was
it's hard to
in some
know.
ways it was helpful in that I just kind of went in. Learning even the language of the Senate, I remember just the orientation and getting this literal CD-ROM of like, hey, listen to this. I'm like, okay, where am I gonna
Where
plug it into?
Yeah,
And then
that's
trying to get a sense of just the way in which you get recognized on the floor and all of those things. And I think that was the moment where I said, okay, there's going to be a bit of a learning curve to
yeah.
dive into it and see. I also just feel like one thing that surprised me too, which I heard people talk about, is some of the differences between House and Senate in terms
Mhm.
of like debate or schedule, or just like the natural styles of how each chamber, their leadership likes to run. And so
Yeah,
that also was something that, seeing it live, I can see what people mean by that, but I just didn't know what to expect there. But
yeah.
yeah, I also think, again, the first year or two to now, there's still like new elements that are coming up or might be more different or surprising that I lean into as well.
It
Yeah.
seems like there's a lot of
Yeah.
moving parts
Yeah.
down there. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different aspects to it. From someone who often sits in the gallery, what I found is the most interesting between the House and the Senate is that the Senate isn't live streamed at all.
No. Yeah.
Do you know, is there a reason that's given? Do you know why that is?
So all I've been told is that from our Senate leadership, our pro tem
Yeah,
Berger, there's just been some resistance to it. And,
interesting.
not only is it not live streamed, so we only have the audio, it also more or less kind of disappears. You have to do a lot of hurdles
Yeah.
to even get that audio later. And you can look at the gold doors in the Senate, kind of look out right across the hall and see the House where they have it live streamed on YouTube with
Yeah.
video. And so
It's very user
it
friendly.
is,
Yeah.
it is. So the capability obviously is there. I believe we're one of only a few chambers at this point in the Senate where we're not recorded. And it does make it tough, because there's a lot of times where we may have to just resort to using our phones or other things to be able to showcase what people are saying on the floor in the debate and all of that.
Which seems like that would make it more distracting.
Yeah.
Because if you have to focus on what you're going to say, reading this bill, getting all prepped from your staff, and then also having to figure out the component of, well, I might have to record this video of one of my colleagues, it
Hmm.
just feels like a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what you said as well of like the juxtaposition of if the House can do it, it's not a tech issue. So I've just
Yeah.
found that very interesting.
No,
That's
I would love it. And I would also love if we had a calendar. So even though the House, they still, the timing of their votes and stuff may vary,
yeah.
they do put out these are the dates in which we expect votes will happen. That's something that we've never, at least in my almost 6 years, had in the Senate. We just kind of keep a go bag ready and say, okay, maybe there'll be votes tomorrow or maybe they won't. And so you can imagine for younger members who have jobs or to have, even everybody who has like a family need
Yeah.
to be back in the district, it makes it really tough to be able to communicate when you can be a place when you don't know.
I mean, it even
Yeah.
just seems inconvenient of if you don't live within an hour radius of Raleigh,
Yeah,
not everyone can just pick up and drive the multiple hours.
exactly.
I didn't realize that because I've seen, Speaker Hall's calendar because he's posted on Instagram. I just assumed that Phil Berger wasn't as tech savvy, so that's why I wasn't up. I didn't realize that there was not a
No,
calendar.
there's no calendar. So we try to maybe go off of what the House is saying. But even this week, it was yesterday that we were saying, okay, based on what Berger said on the floor. So we would listen really closely to the end of day announcements of if
Yes.
votes will occur or if they're likely to occur. And then sometimes we may not know the exact time until the day of, or they may shift. And so talking about moving parts, the timing of it all definitely is something too that we just have to adjust and pivot and do the best we can there.
I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
That
It's wild.
is kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
terrifying. That is insane. And I'm sure for staff too, and just
Yeah.
people to know when they're in the building.
Yeah, even sergeant at arms, everybody. I mean, there's a lot of people who are doing work to help support just government functioning, and it just makes it a lot tougher if we don't know if a week will be off or not,
Absolutely.
especially well in advance. So, yeah.
Because what do like vacancies look like? Or if you like have a vacation scheduled, what happens?
So I have not during a session had a quote unquote proper vacation
Yeah.
since especially when we were not in the super minority, just because it's just so hard to predict.
Absolutely.
I've known of members who have had to fly back from other countries or other states because of work and other things, just because we need to be there. And
Yeah.
so you just kind of try to make your best guess of when it seems likely that we'll be there or not, but is also something that we just tell folks. I try to also look at a flight to see, okay, how many options are there to get back to Raleigh
Yes. Oh my
in time and
gosh.
do it that way. I mean, there was some times where I'm not sure if you know, but I was doing school the last couple of years, and there were definitely moments when I might have been up for classes, et cetera, and just would say, "Hey, professor, I need to jump out and make sure I can fly back." I thought this would be a week we would be off because it was like September or October, I
Oh,
think,
when the
and
schedule was odd, when it
yeah,
was like
exactly,
times a
yeah,
month people were coming in.
yeah.
Can I ask what you were studying? What were you in school for?
Yeah, so I graduated last May with my master's in business administration with a concentration in business analytics and sustainability from MIT. So
Oh
for the
my
last couple
gosh.
years, I would fly back and forth to Boston, well, Cambridge
Yeah.
for classes. And it was a great experience, but I thought most of my classes were Fridays and Saturdays. I would do class for like 8 hours a day, with the exception of like the fall semester, and then there was a little period where we would spend like a closer to a week on campus every 3 to 4 months. And I thought I had it timed perfectly, but as you mentioned, there
Yeah.
was a weird period in the fall where I had to talk to a professor and say I couldn't have anticipated this, and hopped on the flight and was able to make it in time for votes.
Congratulations.
No, thank you.
Of course. Okay,
Yeah.
let me restate your title now, because I feel like we need to give it all of the flowers that you deserve.
Oh, thank you.
Youngest woman to ever be elected into the Senate,
Yeah.
MIT graduate. Incredible. That
Thank
is
you. Yeah.
amazing.
No, that's very
The
kind of you.
fact that you did both, let alone at the same time, and also are just like a functioning human and a mom, is
No,
fabulous.
thank you. That's very kind of you.
Of
Yeah.
course, of
Yeah.
course. Which brings me to our next question of generational differences
Mm,
among your colleagues. You are one of the youngest people in the building at almost all times, which I think
yeah.
shows the vast difference of some of your colleagues were born around the World War II area. How are you navigating these generational differences with policy priorities? Just talking about, you know, where we find this middle ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Walk me through that.
So I definitely think it can vary depending on the topic too,
Hmm.
right? And also the different members. There are some members who are definitely more tech savvy or just more curious than others. So I think that's a big part of it too. Is I find even for myself, and a big reason why I wanted to go back to school is because I really deeply believe in having a growth mindset. Like
Hmm.
always finding ways to be curious, to learn, to push
Yeah,
the boundaries of what I think is possible for myself. And I think that can continue to occur at any age. I hope to still have that when I'm much older.
absolutely.
And so that might be one of the kind of differences with members is that there are some that are a little bit more receptive to leaning into the information that those that may just for whatever reason shy away from it, and that also somewhat changes the types of conversations that may be had. I
Mhm.
think in terms of policy making, and I'm an in the weeds kind of person.
Yeah,
I love to kind of understand like how the decisions we're making will impact us as a systems level, et cetera. But also, when you're talking to people, I try to always use the rule, and sometimes I'll do it for real of talk to this how I would talk to my son or how I would talk to my grandmother.
yeah,
And in that instance of how you communicate with people, I think that forces us to boil it down on a more just direct,
yeah,
human, and taking some of the jargon out type of level. And that helps to be more adaptable in some of those conversations, particularly in energy, which is something that I just naturally gravitate to because of my nonprofit work,
yeah,
thinking of ways to connect the dots of yes, this is a cost thing, but here's how it may be impacting, seniors or others in your community or these types of things. So it's not a one size fits all, and
yeah,
I won't even say I have it fully figured out, but the
yeah,
main way is just figuring out ways to describe it and such that it can cut across a little bit better.
yeah. I
Yeah,
appreciate your
yeah.
approach to language because I think my background's in public health. And
Oh,
so the first thing
yeah,
we're taught is like everything has to be at a sixth grade reading level. I think that makes it approachable.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
politics scares people. I think it's intimidating. And because a lot of that jargon feels like there's an educational barrier to access of what's going on. So I appreciate your
Oh, thank you.
approach to that.
Likewise. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, when you think about it, it's just also what would we want to listen to, right? If you're thinking about the
absolutely.
the golden rule and how much everybody has going on, like cognitively, just
Yeah.
things, when you boil it down, it just gives that clarity, and
Mhm.
being clear is really just such a gift for people to kind of say, got it, and then where do we build from here?
Yeah.
Again, nothing works all the time, but it's a good
No.
attempt at a starting point for sure.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
feel like,
Yeah.
all this shifts,
Yeah.
as there's needs change and things like that, we
Yeah.
adapt. So that's great. Wanted to ask you about your committee assignments.
Yeah.
What committees are you on? What are you excited about for this session?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to try to remember because every term you get a few more.
Okay.
Okay. Appropriations, I am on the kind of AGNR
Mm,
committee. And then outside of that, I serve on the Agriculture, Energy, and Environmental Committee. I serve on Commerce and Insurance.
okay.
I serve on Transportation. I serve on Finance. And I serve on Rules. And I don't believe I'm missing any. At least none of the standing, but I could be missing
Yes.
one. I will admit because they will shift. So my first term, I was on state and local government, as
Mhm.
well as for a defined period of time, you can serve on the ethics committee and some others. So there's over the years, there's been different committees that I've gotten the opportunity to serve on.
And
Yeah.
how much of a say do you have in those assignments, or are they just kind of given to you as it comes?
Yeah, so you fill out a form where you can state your interest. You may or may not get that interest.
Yeah.
I mean, it can go any which way.
Yes.
I am really glad that I was assigned to the Agriculture, Energy, Environmental Committee my
Yeah.
full time here. Transportation actually has been one that I've been trying and trying to get, and this is my first time actually being assigned to the
That's
Transportation
awesome.
Committee. So some of them you get quickly, others you just keep going. For me, the big part was given my background just working on ways to lower energy burdens across the Southeast is
Yeah.
something where I really wanted to take those perspectives to legislating. And so I'm glad to have gotten that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And transportation also makes sense
Yeah.
because I feel like you, out of anybody, are really using the trains to get from
Yeah,
Charlotte to Raleigh. You're
yeah.
seeing that firsthand, so that's awesome.
Thank you.
In terms of legislation, whether that's proposed or passed since your time, what have you been the most proud of? What policies have excited you the most?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many great ideas that are proposed each term. So
Yeah,
I actually get really sad when I go through and look at all the things that don't move forward because
yeah,
you see where people put a lot of stakeholder involvement, a lot of thought, and they unfortunately aren't getting their fair chance at moving through.
yeah,
My first term, I was very fortunate to pass legislation in the health space that was studying lipedema, which is
yeah,
oftentimes, just not as diagnosed. And some of the symptoms of that can be quite debilitating for, in particular, women. And so that was something that I worked really hard that first term, and I didn't realize how rare it was in that moment
yes,
when the bill passed both chambers and was signed to study that and also raise awareness. But, I there's such a mix. I feel like most of my weekly or daily kind of things that I'm most proud of come a lot from our constituent services. So people having some type of critical need and my
yeah,
office and team, as well as myself jumping in to see how we can help. And some of those emails down the line, it really it means a lot to see that we could play a small part into like making their life better in that like really critical moment and diving
yeah,
in however we can. Um, Energy topic wise, we worked on some of the negotiations for House Bill 951, which was looking at the carbon standards. And then there's a number of bills and other legislation that I've long worked on and will continue to do so. Data privacy is
yeah,
one. I also have a number of energy related bills, some of which are bipartisan that are geared towards various pathways to lowering energy costs in the state. So those are a few, but it's hard to whittle it down
yeah.
because
There's a
there's so much
lot.
you aim to, work on. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I had the pleasure of watching you speak during an event a couple of months ago,
Oh,
and you mentioned the fact that you are an introvert, as
oh, yeah.
introverted as it comes, which I feel like oftentimes we don't think of introverts and politicians in the
Yeah.
same vein. Talk me through what it's like to be an introverted elected official.
Yeah, I mean, it is so true. And I'm an introvert in the sense that I know at the end of the day my battery can get depleted,
Yeah.
and people will know like, oh, okay, she's gonna go sleep,
That's so
and then
real.
that like my battery's there, and like I would love to join you for that next thing, and so a lot of that also is me trying to be honest with myself, and so I don't burn out.
Yeah.
I did not do a good job of that my first in going into my second term, and that caused a true health impact on me. I
Yeah.
ended up having to have like a pretty decent eye surgery and other things that I think were in part due to me really pushing myself in ways that
Yeah.
I wasn't listening to and trying to be everywhere and doing everything all the time. And so
Yeah.
part of me just maturing in understanding like who I am as an introvert, as an elected official, is really trying to show up as best as I can and also setting expectations if for whatever reason I might not be able to be there in person, but I can do Zoom or we
Yeah.
can push some other things out. And then also, I guess the balance of it is I don't know, the side of me that does thrive with dopamine.
Yeah.
And I try to sprinkle in those elements of things that I'm very curious about or just kind of naturally gravitating to, just to help me kind of get through any of that. But yeah, I think the biggest is just gaining more self awareness about
Yeah.
the fact that, okay, this is how I just naturally operate. And here's how I can try to create a system for myself, for our office that can work around and work with that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate you
Yeah.
naming just like this is how my personality is and we're gonna have to work around it. I
Yeah.
feel like as women, a lot of us think like we have to do everything at one time and be everything for
Yeah.
everybody. And I think that's always at the detriment of our health.
For
Uh,
sure. I mean, I literally keep the picture in the album of me at the polls with an eye patch on with my kids, almost as just a reminder because in that moment I did not know what was going on with my health. I ended up
Yeah.
having to be in the hospital for about a week and having to travel really all around the United States to Cleveland Clinic, Wills Eye Hospital, others, just to try to understand, what was happening with me at that time. Was it autoimmune? Was it more cancerous? And that's when I found out that all roads to it show autoimmune related. And for me, that was a huge wake up call to say, like, I
Yeah.
still absolutely want to serve. I can serve, but I need to be thoughtful about DeAndrea as the whole person, as the
Yes.
mom, as the elected, as all of those. And I think that it's going to sound odd to say, but that moment had me think about my life design in a very
Yeah.
different way. And I went to school after that, but it was in pursuit of one thing about me is that I love to put myself in to that point, the ability to learn and to grow. And
Yeah.
MIT has a great systems dynamics program that I can bring into my work. And it was, again, on paper, it might sound like more, but it was me looking at what are the kind of boxes around me and how am I trying to fill that in the right way. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the pipeline from political women to autoimmune diseases is one that should be studied.
Yeah.
I found out I had autoimmune disease about 6 months ago,
Wow.
and it
Yeah.
was the same of I'm working crazy hours. I'm trying to be everything for everybody, and it was resulting in my health.
Yeah.
So I had it's one of those aha moments of as well to be like, how do I reframe?
Yeah.
Politics is what I love to do. I want this to be part of my career, but we have to do that sustainably.
Right. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
appreciate you just sharing that part because I
Yeah. Thank
think,
you too.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course. I think there's so many women that are in politics that are trying to thread that needle. And
Yeah.
I just appreciate being able to talk about it and like
Yeah.
listening to your body and still being an amazing like leader and person and doing all the things. So thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. My biggest question that I have for you is what advice do you have for the young people in the state that are looking at the General Assembly right now, looking at the work that you're doing and want to get involved?
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to say thank you to the work you're doing on that.
Thank
It's
you.
things move just so incredibly fast. We talked about even the schedule, and that's just true for even us as
Yeah.
elected officials, particularly in the super minority. And so at times it feels like even with the election bill or there's a lot of talk about some transportation related amendments. It can be hard to get the information out as quickly. And so I think
Yeah.
organizations like yours and what you're doing are really incredible for that because a lot of people are seeing social media as their number one news source, like
Yes.
at least the first, and then maybe they'll follow it up with all these other things.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to first and start and say that.
Thank you.
I also think there's a lot of great organizations that are looking at everything from voting rights to, labor and so many other causes. And I definitely suggest that folks see maybe locally if there's something they care about or are concerned about plugging in with them, if nothing else, to get information, but also to see ways that they might be able to have the most impact with their own unique skill sets, talents, interests.
Mhm.
And then to that point, I definitely love when people from the district or not reach out if there's something that I'm working on that they just want to ask questions about, engage on, see how they can help advocate for. I just had a really great conversation just a week ago with a high school student who is very into data privacy and artificial intelligence. And just
Yeah.
those things are also helpful because as an elected official, I'm only one person. And as much as
Yes.
I'm bringing in my perspectives, I still need to bring in a lot of others too to make the best decisions, to be able to advocate the best,
Yeah.
to draw awareness to where there might be a shortcoming for things. And when people are even reaching out, whether that's to me or whether that's just to say, hey, have you considered that? We really try to catalog that so that it goes a long way in the conversation of sometimes you'll get into a debate where they'll say, well, we actually haven't heard any opposition or nobody's pointed this thing out. And you don't know how sometimes those small little like nuggets and sparks of,
Yeah.
well, I heard this thing once, and then that can sometimes be a difference maker on how quickly something moves, or if there might actually be a opportunity to change or amend it. So,
Yeah.
and then in terms of advice, I always struggle with that. I think, I think my biggest bit for me is just, um, I just suggest for myself to sometimes lean and try to be persistent as I can. And also, as a recovering perfectionist, understand that
Mhm.
things don't have to be perfect as you go. They don't have to be perfect at all. And so, really starting to lean more into that progress and leaning
Yeah.
more into just acknowledging that we're all people on the planet, ideally trying to do what's best for ourselves and each other. And so, I don't know. I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that I look back now is just maybe I could have gave my younger self a little bit more grace and to figure it out and to not get it. And I look back and I have a thing on my phone right now, and it's literally just a notes app where every time I get rejected or every time I fail, I just list it out as something for me to personally celebrate. And it's not for, I'm not showing it, but it's something for me to say, if I'm not adding to that list, then it might mean that I'm not trying new things. I'm not pushing myself. I'm not going out there.
Yeah.
And that's just something that me personally, I found helpful in the chance of where I want things to be really great and perfect to force myself to kind of get uncomfortable on the other
Yeah.
side too.
I love that. I feel
Yeah.
like we sometimes often grow when we are the most uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Anything else that you want to share with us before we close today?
Yeah, yeah. So you might have seen on social media or maybe in the news that I had a pretty bizarre and public ordeal where I now have a lawsuit against Whirlpool as well as Omnicom because they essentially took my TED Talk from 2018 talking about energy costs, deep faked it, and submitted it to Cannes Lions, the international awards where it won the Grand Prix, which is the top prize out of, I think, maybe 15 or 20,000 submissions. And when we talk of,
What?
yeah, it's the most bizarre
How
thing.
bizarre.
And I only found out, thankfully, because some whistleblowers were emailing me, just trying to understand if this was like just asking questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What in the world? Where are you at now in this
Yeah.
process with your lawsuit?
Yeah, so we were in federal court in Charlotte in May,
Okay.
and the judge granted us limited jurisdictional discovery, which is essentially my legal team has the opportunity to ask very pointed questions to all of the defendants. So Whirlpool, Omnicom, which is the largest advertising agency in the world, and a few others that we believe are involved, as well as document requests. And so they have until about mid-July to provide that information over to us. And then my legal team also will have some time to do a deposition before the end of summer. It's really unfortunate when you see yourself used in a commercial advertisement at
Yeah.
that scale to then have to fight it. But it also is just a big testament to where we are when we're talking about the changing landscape of technology, the
Yeah.
changing landscape of consent and intellectual property and how it can, unfortunately, could potentially impact us all.
And
Yeah.
how predatory of an experience, I'm
Yeah.
sure, that you have to, one, hear that from people that are not closest to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially for moments that being able to give a TED Talk is such an incredible opportunity.
Yeah. And
And so for that to be taken away,
it was pretty terrible because at the bare minimum, you would think there would be just a bar of getting saying who is this person that's in our advertisement,
let's call her
and
up,
and did
maybe.
they agree? But then to go as far as to change the slides behind me, to change the words I was saying to make it appear like I was talking about other countries and stats than what I actually said, and with data that I have not been able to verify, and to then win a creative data award with my plagiarized and also doctored work. It was, when you talk about being someone in a leadership position, but also that's very like solutions oriented and like focused on community, to one,
Yeah,
have the community erased, which is essentially what that did. And then
absolutely.
two, just kind of made into a prop and a talking head as an elected official on top of that. It just was
Horrible.
such a bizarre and terrible thing to see.
And I think
Yeah.
shows, unfortunately, some of the scary parts of being in 2026,
Yeah.
the new tech that's coming out, and how it can also be so harmful. I
Yeah.
mean, I think about I think as an elected official, your reputation is public and on the line, and I feel like than most other people. And so
Yeah.
I think that's such a terrifying
Yeah.
experience. I'm so sorry
I
that that has
appreciate that.
happened.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely I will tell anybody if you see me and cutting to a bunch of refrigerators, that was not
That is
anything I would
bizarre.
or ever plan to agree to.
And also just something so sad that we even have to talk about.
Yeah,
And I think unfortunately too, this is probably the first time this has happened with elected officials. It won't be the
yeah,
last. And I
yeah,
think I don't know, it's just something that definitely gives me like a pit in my stomach because the way that tech is being used
yeah.
to rewrite narratives and just work is so unfortunate.
Yeah.
But anything timeline wise, aside from what we've already talked about, do you know when you should be hopefully wrapping this case up?
Yeah,
Anything like
I
that?
wish I could say right now, Whirlpool and Omnicom are actually just trying to get the case thrown out. They don't admit that the ad was they used, so, that AI was used to manipulate it. What they're arguing is if I should be allowed to sue in the United States, despite being an elected official, despite Cannes being a hugely international festival and a lot of North Carolina schools were there in Cannes. There were also North Carolina businesses, et cetera. They, unfortunately, right now, the step that they're aiming to take is to get it thrown out on legal technicalities. So as we are really putting forward that we believe that as the victim who lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and represents Charlotte, North Carolina, that I should be able to sue in Charlotte, North Carolina, particularly for companies like Whirlpool and Omnicom that have
Yeah,
such huge business in the
absolutely.
state. So more to come, but at the bare minimum, through the summer for the depositions as well as other elements for the case, and then from there, the judge will ultimately decide on the fate and next steps of the case. Yeah,
Thank you for that
yeah.
update.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry that that
I
is
appreciate it.
happening, and we will look forward to updates hopefully by the end of the summer.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
My last question for you, walk us through your order.
Yes. So, oh yeah,
I
I
totally
know, right?
forgot until now.
Yeah, no. Okay, so I got same order I have done since college, essentially: burger tray, nuggets, Cajun fries, and I was going to do a milkshake, but we have a lot of meetings and such going on after this, so
You have to plan
yeah,
accordingly.
you gotta think it through. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you so
yeah.
much for
Thank
joining us
you.
today.
Appreciate it.